the cat. Eat the cat. They're eating the cats. They're eating the dogs.
I would intro the show, but I want to hear it.
Eat the cat. 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 They're eating the dogs. They're eating the cats. Eat the cat.
I found this last night, my friend.
ABC News did reach out to the city manager there. He told us there had been no credible reports of specific claims of pets being harmed, injured, or abused by individuals within the immigrant community.
I've seen people on television.
Let me just say here, this is...
Can we get a visual too?
My dog was taken and used for food. So
all right.
That,
Welcome to Timeless, everybody. I'm Julie Hartman. It is great to be with you. How about that introduction? I discovered this last night and asked Sean to play it as far as the bumpers go, and I kept playing it on repeat because it was so funny.
They're eating the dogs. They're eating the cats. Eat the cat. Eat the cat. They're eating the dogs. They're eating the cats.
It's really catchy. It's really catchy. I happen to love this remix. And you know what? By the way, it is true, apparently, according to many credible sources, that they actually are eating the dogs and eating the cats. Eat the cats in Springfield, Ohio. But that is not the exact subject of today, although it is related. But first, I got to tell you the date. It's Tuesday, September 17th, 2024. As I said, I'm Julie Hartman, and it is great to be with you. 844-861-5537 is the call-in number, 844-861-5537. And you're going to want to call in today or use the live chat, because what you just heard is part of a larger subject. That is the ABC News debate last week, literally a week ago today, between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris, where those infamous claims were made. Well, there are some soon to be, hopefully, infamous claims that are made public by an affidavit, which was notarized the day before the presidential debate by an ABC News employee. And this individual is alleging that there was extreme bias by ABC News leading up to the debate that we saw last week, where apparently there were several instances of ABC News working behind the scenes with the Harris campaign in order to give the Harris campaign an advantage. So this affidavit is what we're going to be talking about today, and we're going to look at clips from the debate to see if the moderator's performance corroborates what was alleged, again, the day before the debate even happened. This was notarized on September 9th, 2024. So let's go in here and look at three of the main allegations. And none of this is going to come as a surprise to you, because many people after the debate were saying that it was 3-on-1. But we're going to be going through the three main ones. You can look at it right here. Bill Ackman tweeted this out. It's important that Bill Ackman tweeted it because it was made public earlier in the day before he tweeted it, but predictably few mainstream media outlets even covered it. ABC News, to my knowledge, has not covered that there was an internal whistleblower alleging severe bias inside of ABC News. So if you want to go to Twitter and look at it yourselves, you can, but it's quite short. And here are the three main things. The first one, reading directly here from the affidavit, is that this individual says that they have worked for ABC News for over 10 years in various technical and administrative positions. And they say, I do not endorse Donald Trump in his capacity as candidate for president of the United States. But the intent of this affidavit is to address concerns regarding perceived biases with the news reporting within my employer's debate. So the first thing that this person says, unbelievable. Here, quote, it was agreed that Donald Trump would be subjected to fact-checking during the debate, while Kamala Harris would not face similar scrutiny. The Harris campaign required assurances that Trump would be fact-checked. This was done via multiple communications with the Harris campaign, whereas the Trump campaign was not included. So certainly doesn't come as a shock. We know, we all saw what happened, that Kamala Harris was not fact-checked once. By my count, and I went through and read the entire transcript and did a score sheet that I actually reported on with Larry Elder on his show last week. By my count, they fact-checked Donald Trump 8 times and only fact-checked Kamala Harris 0 times. So certainly not a surprise there. The second claim that this person makes is that, quote, the Harris campaign was provided with sample questions, while not exact questions, covered similar topics that would appear during the debate. If this is true, this is so unbelievably damning that a news organization claiming to be objective and to moderate a debate between two candidates to discern truth from falsehood, to discern their policy positions for the benefit of the American people, it is so damning, if this is true, that they gave one campaign sample questions ahead of it and not giving it to another campaign, and agreeing to come at one candidate with fact checks while not providing similar scrutiny to the other candidate. And as if that's not worse enough, according to this whistleblower, quote, the Harris campaign imposed restrictions on the scope of questioning, including no questions regarding the perceived health of President Joe Biden, no inquiries related to her tenure as Attorney General in San Francisco, which is a little shady, given that that would be a particularly pertinent part of her career to talk about if she's running for president. And then the third one was no questions concerning her brother-in-law, Tony West, who faces allegations of embezzling billions of dollars in taxpayer funds and who may be involved in her administration if elected. So this, as I said, are the three most damning. These are the three most damning accusations. But there's even another one which seems small compared to the others, but it's important. The Harris campaign, this person alleges, received particular accommodations, including but not limited to the providing of a podium significantly smaller than that used by Donald Trump, and assurances regarding split-screen television views that would favorably impact Kamala Harris's appearance compared to Donald Trump. Now, really, the visuals matter so much to people. I call back to the 1960 presidential debate, the first televised one between Democratic President John F. Kennedy and his Republican counterpart, Richard Nixon. And interestingly, after that debate, the Americans who listened to it on the radio said that they believed that Richard Nixon performed better. But those who watched it on television said that they thought that John F. Kennedy did better. That's no surprise to me because John F. Kennedy is easier on the eyes, in my opinion, than Richard Nixon. But nevertheless, that taught us something, that the visuals really do matter. And I noticed immediately that the camera angle on Donald Trump was from above. It made him look domineering and perturbed, whereas Kamala Harris had a straight on one. Also, just someone I actually was guest hosting for Dennis Prager's radio show pointed this out, that Donald Trump was on the left side of the screen. And actually, that has people who study this find that subconsciously, because most people are right-handed, they prefer the right side of the screen or subliminally associate that with more dominance. So it's really just unbelievable if this is allowed to happen. And as Bill Ackman pointed out, he wrote a public letter to Bob Iger, the CEO of Disney, and he astutely noted that, quote, the moderators of the debate, David Muir and Lindsay Davis, have yet to respond to the allegations. Since they have not yet done so, one must draw a negative inference. Now, this also comes amidst new information that is being found out about the would-be assassin, the second one, of former President Donald Trump. We know that on Sunday, Donald Trump was golfing at the Trump International Golf Course in Palm Beach, Florida, when Secret Service agents spotted an AK-style rifle pointing out from the chain-linked fence surrounding the golf course. This individual was about 300 to 500 yards away from the president. We know that Secret Service fired shots, the suspect fled, and then was arrested on the highway. And we have found out that not only did this individual donate to Democratic campaigns 19 times since 2019, not only did this individual have a lengthy, and I really mean lengthy, criminal record with traffic stops, barricading himself for 3 hours after he was pulled over and fleeing police. He actually has a charge of possessing a weapon of mass destruction because he had this fully automatic machine gun. Not only do we know those things, but now we are seeing that he wrote a book, a 291 page self-published book, in which he said that he is, quote, man enough to say, I misjudged, he's referring to his previous support of Donald Trump, and made a terrible mistake when voting for Donald Trump. And it appears that he believes this terrible mistake is because Trump is undemocratic. He goes on to refer to January 6, 2021 as a catastrophe perpetuated by Donald Trump and his undemocratic posse. So issues pertaining to the alleged assault on democracy, it seems to be very important to this individual, or alleged assaults on democracy, because the title of this aforementioned self-published book is Ukraine's Unwinnable War, The Fatal Flaw of Democracy, World Abandonment, and the Global Citizen, Taiwan, Afghanistan, North Korea, World War III, and the End of Humanity. So we have this individual who seems very concerned with this issue of democracy. And he, by the way, was recruiting foreign individuals to serve in Ukraine. He was very, very committed to the cause of Ukraine against Russia. But clearly we have this guy who is super, in his mind, committed to the cause of democracy. He believes, as he wrote, that Donald Trump is part of an undemocratic posse. He brought about a catastrophe on January 6, 2021. And so we have to ask what it is that this individual is thinking to lead him to stipulate that Donald Trump essentially is a threat to democracy. I want to make it clear he did not say that overtly, but in his writings, he is seeming to associate Donald Trump with a threat to democracy by, again, referring to him as part of an undemocratic posse and saying he made a terrible mistake when supporting him and that he facilitated a catastrophe. And we have to hold people accountable for spreading these lies that Donald Trump is a dictator. This kind of rhetoric, as he indicated in the debate and has since indicated, is proving to be a threat to his life. We can't, of course, draw A directly to B, but it would seem that a lot of the lies that the mainstream media, among others, have peddled about Donald Trump have created individuals such as this one who, again, it seems believed that our president had to be murdered in order to, as the title of his book says, save humanity. He's talking about the end of humanity, the fatal flaw of democracy, world abandonment. Again, I'm making it very clear. He did not write that he wanted to kill Donald Trump for this cause, or he did not directly say, I believe that Donald Trump is a threat to democracy. But in this language, he is putting Donald Trump together with an undemocratic posse. And so this ABC News whistleblower, in addition to showing the institutional corruption of ABC, is indicating how these attitudes are really allowed to leach into the mainstream. Because one of the main parts of that presidential debate, by my judgment, and you can disagree with me in the chat or by calling in, is that they tried to make Donald Trump look like a dictator, time and time again. And we know that whistleblower, one of the key allegations is that Donald Trump would be, it was agreed, she said, or he, forgive me for perhaps misgendering the whistleblower. This person says it was agreed that Donald Trump would be subjected to fact-checking during the debate while Kamala Harris would not face similar scrutiny. We're going to look right now at those fact checks. And what they reveal is that time and time again, Donald Trump was made to look like a dictator. Not only with the fact checks that he got, but with the fact checks that his opponent did not get, and with the kind of ways that David Muir and Lindsay Davis teed up questions to Donald Trump versus how they teed up questions to Kamala Harris. So it's showing two things. It's corroborating the allegations of the whistleblower who notarized this affidavit the day before the debate. And it's also indicating how individuals, such as the would-be assassin of Donald Trump, gets these kind of ideas of Donald Trump as undemocratic. But before we get to that, while it may not be the best thing to watch an ABC News presidential debate, it is a really good thing to invest in gold. Sean will rate how great of a segue that was. I'd give it a 6 out of 10. But you know what's not a 6 out of 10? As I said, investing in gold. Seriously, economists are warning us about massive tax hikes that could hit our IRAs and 401ks hard. With inflation rising and global uncertainty, it's no wonder central banks and many Americans are turning to gold. If you haven't thought about gold yet, now is the time, and you should trust Priority Gold to help you diversify your savings with gold and silver. Text GOLDEN to 1-800-405-GOLD for a free gold information guide and see if you qualify for free shipping and storage. Experts agree that physical gold is one of the best ways to fortify your savings. Act now to get your portfolio working for you while the market is golden. Text GOLDEN to 1-800-405-GOLD. That's text GOLDEN to 1-800-405-GOLD. So let's go through here and see again if the moderator's debate performance accords with the allegations of the whistleblower in the affidavit, namely that Donald Trump would face fact-checking while Kamala Harris would not have similar scrutiny. And let's contemplate how this disparity may lead to Americans believing that Donald Trump is a dictator. Let's start with the bloodbath lie. This is so despicable. Video 11.
And the approach that is about attacking the foundations of our democracy because you don't like the outcome. And be clear on that point. Donald Trump, the candidate, has said in this election there will be a bloodbath if this and the outcome of this election is not to his liking.
Let's hear what Donald Trump said in that bloodbath comment. Video 12.
Tell you something to China. If you're listening, President Xi, and you and I are friends, but he understands the way I deal, those big monster car manufacturing plants that you're building in Mexico right now, and you think you're going to get that, you're going to not hire Americans, and you're going to sell the cars to us. Now, we're going to put a 100% tariff on every single car that comes across the line, and you're not going to be able to sell those cars. If I get elected, now, if I don't get elected, it's going to be a bloodbath for the whole, that's going to be the least of it. It's going to be a bloodbath for the country. That'll be the least of it.
So there was no correction there by David Muir or Lindsay Davis. None. She's saying that, Trump's going to say that there's going to be a bloodbath if the outcome of the election is not to his liking. That is a lie by omission. He was not saying that there would be a bloodbath if the election is not to his liking. He would say that economically there would be a bloodbath, which is a phrase that people use to describe a catastrophe if Xi Jinping would be allowed to have Chinese vehicle and vehicle parts flood the market. Don't you think that would require a fact check? Let's listen actually to one of the fact checks. We know that 8 times David Muir and Lindsay Davis fact checked Donald Trump, and many of their fact checks were wrong. As we open the episode, the Springfield, Ohio pet abuse fact check was wrong. Actually, there is pet abuse in Springfield, Ohio. Also, the statistics about violent crime that David Muir said that Donald Trump had wrong, he actually had wrong. And we see that at times he editorialized the fact checks. We know, of course, David Muir cut in and said that he did not detect sarcasm when the president said that he lost the election by a whisker, even though Donald Trump was saying he was being sarcastic. And then there was this bizarre fact check of redirecting Donald Trump to the purpose of the question, where the moderator, David Muir, said that Donald Trump wasn't appropriately answering the question. This is clip 31 after his answer about January 6th. We have, it's Trump Harris 31. We don't have it. Okay, that's fine. Well, basically, it's David Muir. We played it during the guest hosting. David Muir saying that the question was not about Nancy Pelosi. It was about you, Donald Trump, when he started to make the question or the answer about Nancy Pelosi and his offering National Guard troops. We have the audio. Thank you.
The question was about you as president, not about former Speaker Pelosi.
So we see that David Muir has no problem cutting in to correct, and they did not do that when Kamala Harris was clearly lying by omission about this bloodbath lie, which is really grave. We've gotten used to it, but it is incredibly grave. If the president of the United States did say that, that is worth our attention. But he was not saying that. And by the way, we even need to contemplate this more because we have this Pavlovian reaction. Let's say he was saying there will be a bloodbath. That doesn't mean that he's endorsing it or that he's wanting there to be a bloodbath. I worry that there may be a bloodbath if Donald Trump doesn't win or if Kamala Harris does win. But clearly that's not what he was saying there. She tried to make out his statement to be very different from what it was. That is a lie. Let's go on to the Charlottesville lie. This is clip 33.
Let's remember Charlottesville, where there was a mob of people carrying tiki torches, spewing anti-Semitic hate. And what did the president then at the time say? There were fine people on each side.
Definitely seems to accord with the whistleblower's stipulation that Donald Trump would be subjected to fact-checking while Harris would not face similar scrutiny. Because after that lie was allowed to be said by Vice President Harris, again, there was nothing from the moderators. Let's hear what Trump actually said for the 50 millionth probably time in August of 2017, video 13.
Was George Washington a slave owner? So will George Washington now lose his status? Are we going to take down, are we going to take down statues to George Washington? How about Thomas Jefferson? What do you think of Thomas Jefferson? You like him? Okay, good. Are we going to take down the statue? Because he was a major slave owner. Now we're going to take down his statue. So you know what? It's fine. You're changing history, you're changing culture, and you had people, and I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis and the white nationalists, because they should be condemned totally. But you had many people in that group other than neo-Nazis and white nationalists, okay? And the press has treated them absolutely unfairly.
But we know that not only Kamala Harris in that debate, but President Joe Biden, among others, have peddled that lie all day long. And shame on the ABC News reporters for not fact-checking that. They know better, but they allow that to be said because they know that many, apparently, a great segment of the population of the American people continues to believe or continues to choose to believe that lie. But it is a lie. And they have peddled that thing. They have hustled that lie all day long. Let's look at what Joe Biden said in 2019 when he was running for office. Video 14.
We knew he wasn't going to live. And he said, Dad, I know. We know what's going to happen. He said, I'm going to be okay, Dad. I'm all right. I'm not afraid. But Dad, you got to make me a promise. I said, what's that, Bo? He said, I know when it happens, you're going to want to quit. You're not going to stay engaged. He went to my dad. He said, look at me. Look at me, Dad. Give me your word as a Biden. When I go, you'll stay engaged. Give me your word. Give me your word. And I did. And then that's why I had not planned on running after he died. And then Charlottesville happened. It was there on August of 2017 we saw Klansmen and white supremacists and neo-Nazis come out in the open. Their crazed faces, illuminated by torches, veins bulging and bearing the fangs of racism, chanting the same anti-Semitic bile heard across Europe in the 30s. And they were met by a courageous group of Americans and a violent clash ensued. And a brave young woman lost her life. And that's when we heard the words of the President of the United States that stunned the world and shocked the conscience of this nation. He said there were, quote, some very fine people on both sides. Very fine people on both sides? With those words, the President of the United States assigned a moral equivalence between those spreading hate and those with the courage to stand against it.
It is literally reminiscent of a Soviet-style propaganda effort. It is so despicable. And really, the President of the United States right there, Kamala Harris, the vice president in that debate, and the moderators who failed to fact-check her deserve that title. It is despicable. For them to peddle that the President of the United States was somehow praising neo-Nazis and white supremacists. By the way, this shows you that many of these individuals do not actually care about what they claim to care about. They talk about racism and white supremacy all of the time. And if they were truly concerned about it, they would treat it with the kind of gravity that it deserves. And they would not do something like this, where they are using it as a weapon to cudgel their political opponent. People who are genuinely supporting white nationalists and neo-Nazis deserve our greatest scorn. And for them to so superfluously treat this and just continue to lie about it in order to froth up this boogeyman and denigrate their opponent, that is despicable. I want to play a clip from President... He's actually not president, forgive me. He was running for president, but he's a former senator, the late John McCain, when someone asked him about Obama. And I want us to compare the way that John McCain responded to this with the way that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are lying constantly about Donald Trump. Video 2.
We're scared. We're scared of an Obama presidency, and I'll tell you why. I'm concerned about someone that cohorts with domestic terrorists such as Ayers.
I have to tell you, he is a decent person and a person that you do not have to be scared as President of the United States. Now,
Now, imagine if that individual were asking a similar question to Vice President Kamala Harris or President Joe Biden. What if someone got up and said, I'm worried about Donald Trump because he comports with white supremacists? You know how they would answer. They would say, I know. It's very, very concerning. They would bring up the Charlottesville lie. That is so awful. And John McCain provides such a fantastic example for us. And by the way, Donald Trump should do more of this, of course. The thing about Donald Trump is that because he has the big things right, he is very loose with his details and very loose with his wording, where he goes, they're the worst policy in the history of the world, the worst president in the history of our country, the worst. He's certainly exaggerates when it comes to talking about his opponents and about the stakes of things, indeed. But that is very, very different from a bald-faced lie and literally running your campaign on the fact that this person said and did something which they blatantly did not, in no stratosphere, do. But, they know that this race thing is a weapon. They know that people will not do their due diligence to actually see what happened, and they continue to invoke it, that is. During the debate, we saw that this happened, where David Muir was introducing this general topic of race and politics. Although he packaged it as a general topic, it actually, just like many other topics in the debate, was designed to make Donald Trump answer a specific question and explain Donald Trump. And so listen to this race hustling. Again, David Muir or Lindsey Davis does not correct Kamala Harris on the Charlottesville lie. And then they race hustle with something like this, video 7.
I want to move on now to race and politics in this country. Mr. President, you recently said of Vice President Harris, quote, I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black. I want to ask a bigger picture question here tonight. Why do you believe it's appropriate to weigh in on the racial identity of your opponent?
I don't, and I don't care.
By the way, you know what I thought that was probably the best response of the entire night, but because he doesn't care, and most voters do not care about the vice president's race. But you know what would have been an even better response? If he had gone on offense, if he had said, why wouldn't it be appropriate for me to weigh in on the race of my opponent, given that my opponent constantly talks about her race and uses her race as a prime detail in her candidacy and indeed in her policy positions. For instance, she and her co-captain, Joe Biden, tout all of the time that they nominated the first Black female to the Supreme Court. Let's listen to Kamala Harris at the DNC. This is video 1. This is called the Kamala Harris story. And just listen. She's introducing herself to the public. How much race is brought up?
Well, it started with her parents, her mother, a South Asian scientist, and her father, a Black economist. After her parents divorced, she and her sister were raised by her mother with the help of friends and neighbors.
My mother was very well aware that she was raising 2 Black girls to be 2 Black women.
So immediately there we hear the race of the mother, the race of the father, and then that she was raised to be a Black woman. So, of course, Donald Trump would weigh in on the race of his opponent if his opponent is constantly talking about race. But we see, again, this unequal treatment, and the affidavit, I think, acknowledged it very well. Again, this was notarized the day before the debate. We all saw what happened at the debate, and it really does seem to comport that Kamala Harris would not face similar scrutiny. An appropriate question for David Muir to ask as a counterpoint to Kamala Harris is, why do you bring your race up so much? Do you think it is the most important part of you in your candidacy? To what extent do racial issues affect your policy positions? Period. Or does merit influence more of your policy positions? If you could choose, would it be race or merit? That would be an equal question that Kamala Harris would deserve. If you're going to ask Donald Trump why it's appropriate to weigh in on the race of the opponent, you would ask Kamala Harris a similar question in this greater headline of race and politics. But instead, David Muir merely rejoined, quote, Vice President Harris, your thoughts on this. Like, give us your truth, Black woman. Give us your truth. Orange Man Bad is saying that you turn Black. He's so racist. What are your thoughts on this? Have the mic for a moment. And this is what she says, Trump Harris 51.
Honestly, I think it's a tragedy that we have someone who wants to be president who has consistently, over the course of his career, attempted to use race to divide the American people.
So much gaslighting. Right. Because you have never used race to divide the American people. You did not just use race with the whole Charlottesville lie to divide the American people. Your co-captain, Joe Biden, and talking about the white supremacists with the tiki torches and the words that stun the world and the nation. Yeah, he's not using race at all to divide the country. Again, nothing coming from the moderators evincing the whistleblowers' allegations. Now, in addition to these lies, the bloodbath lie, the Charlottesville lie, and the lack of subsequent fact-checking, even though repeatedly Donald Trump was subjected to, in my count, 8 fact checks, we also know that Kamala Harris lied about the institutional mechanisms that were allegedly in place that would enable this white supremacist fawning bloodbath dictator to stay in power. It did not get any fact check from the moderators. They know that this is false. The way that she packaged it, that is false. This is on Supreme Court immunity, video 9.
a really quick response here, Vice President Harris, on this notion of weaponization of the Justice Department.
Well, let's talk about extreme and understand the context in which this election in 2024 is taking place. The United States Supreme Court recently ruled that the former president would essentially be immune from any misconduct if he were to enter the White House again.
That is not true. The Supreme Court in July did not rule that a president would be immune from any misconduct. By the way, notice that she put in the word essentially. The Supreme Court ruled that presidents enjoy immunity from official acts while being president of the United States, not for unofficial acts or acts that they partake in when they are not president of the United States. And by the way, that would apply to Kamala Harris should she be the president of the United States. But nevertheless, this is a mechanism here that people have to understand. And I talked about it after the Democratic National Convention. The Democrats employ this all of the time. Whereas Donald Trump exaggerates, and really, his mischaracterization comes from the scope of the exaggeration. As I said, she's the worst vice president ever. He's the worst president ever. It was the worst policy ever. Worse this, worse that. The origins of it are true. The main point of it is true, but the way that he says it is way blown out of proportion. In contrast to that, what Joe Biden and Kamala Harris do is that they make claims that are 100% false, not exaggerated, 100% false. And they rely on the American people and the people covering for them, in this case, the moderators of the debate who did not fact check her, to allow them to spread these lies because they know that the American people actually do not have the time, and I don't begrudge them for this, it's just a reality, do not have the time to unearth the facts that they so carefully do not adhere to. So most Americans don't know about this immunity ruling. They hear the word immunity, they don't quite get what it means, and then they hear Kamala Harris saying that, and they think, oh my God, Donald Trump can just run wild with anything that he does because the Supreme Court said that he could. That's not true. And David Muir and Lindsay Davis know it's not true. They know what she's trying to do by create confusion surrounding this topic to the American people, and they don't cut in and make any kind of clarification. Here's another example, just to go on and on with this mechanism that they have of just lying. Abortion bans, these Trump abortion bans. Literally, what is this woman talking about? Trump Harris 11.
Tell you something to China.
And the approach that is about attacking the foundations of our democracy because you don't like the outcome. And be clear on that point. Donald Trump, the candidate, has said in this election there will be a bloodbath.
That is the bloodbath one. Do we have Trump Harris 11, the abortion bans one?
Trump abortion bans that make no exception even for rape and incest.
Yeah. Okay. There is not a monolithic Trump abortion ban. By the way, he has said repeatedly, including in the debate, that if there were a federal ban passed by Congress, that he would not sign it into law. But she likes to create this idea that there are Trump abortion bans. When Roe v. Wade was overturned, the issue of abortion went back to the states, and different states are allowed to create restrictions or not of the time at which a woman can get an abortion. We know in Tennessee, abortion is legal. However, we also know that in other red Trump states like Florida, they're having a ballot initiative this November to enshrine a constitutional right to abortion up until 6 months of a woman's pregnancy. But again, she is trying to coin this phrase, gaslight the American people, and she knows that the people who are supposed to step in, the moderators of this debate, to discern truth from falsehood, to give a really accurate understanding to the American people of who they are going to put into power, she knows that they're not going to do it. And the whistleblower the day before was outlining that they were not going to do it. And just to illustrate a few more examples of this, because it is such a classic playbook. They do the Trump abortion bans. It literally is, it just does not make any sense. They also do this whole book banning boogeyman. We played after the Democratic National Convention, Michelle Obama saying, they're banning our books. Well, the Heritage Foundation partnered with the American Enterprise Institute to actually look into the subject of book banning. PEN America is this nonprofit which is really behind this whole idea that Republicans are banning books. And in the 2021 to 2022 school year, according to the Epoch Times, PEN America alleged that over 2,500 books were banned. The exact number is 2,532. Well, Jay Green of the Heritage Foundation and Max Eden, who I welcomed on this show of the American Enterprise Institute, actually went through at each of those 2,532 titles and figured out if they were being banned. And what they found is that, quote, 74% of the books that PEN America identified as banned from school libraries were actually listed as available in the catalogs of those school districts. So what they found is that hardly from being a ban is an all-out rejection of something, that these books were actually moved in most cases to different parts of the library because, I don't know if you remember being in elementary or middle school, but there was a section for kindergartners. There's a section for, maybe K through 2, 2 through 6, 6 through 9, and 9 through 12, because there are some books, like books about sex, that are really not appropriate for children to read. So those do not count as a book ban. They are moved to different parts of the libraries. This person said they were listed as available in the catalogs of those school districts. And then for the remaining 26%, Max Eden said that for the most part, the books that were being removed were, quote, plainly pornographic. And in fact, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis 2 years ago gave a press conference in which he started to read some of the content of one of the books that was removed from Florida public schools. And actually, the news agency cut the live feed because it was so pornographic that it didn't meet their standards of content. They had to cut it legally. So they do this with the book ban. They also do this with this whole Muslim ban. We hear abortion ban, book ban, Muslim ban. Remember that? They act like there was some writ large ban on Muslims in this country. It's obscene. That is referring to Executive Order 13769. It's called the Protecting the Nation from Foreign Terrorist Entry into the United States. I'm going to read it directly to you. This is not a Muslim ban. Here's what it says. To ensure the proper review for the screening of foreign nationals and that adequate standards are established to prevent infiltration by foreign terrorists or criminals, this is Donald Trump, hereby proclaim that the immigrant and non-immigrant entry into the United States of aliens from countries referred to in section whatever of the act would be detrimental to the interests of the United States. I hereby suspend entry into the United States of such persons for 90 days from the date of this order. So what we see is that the individuals were suspended from specific countries. There was no designation that Muslim individuals would be suspended. It was foreign nationals from specific countries, which are actually on the state sponsors of terrorism list. And also, that order was for 90 days. It's just a total lie. It's just like the Charlottesville lie. It's a total lie. And in fact, if you really want to know the history of it, that executive order of Trump relied on a law that President Obama passed into law in 2015. It's called the Visa Waiver Program Improvement and Terrorist Travel Prevention Act, which put 4 countries, Iraq, Syria, Iran, and Sudan, on the state sponsors of terrorism list. And that law required that foreign nationals from those 4 countries had to get alternative visas for the United States, even if they were part of a different visa program where nationals from 38 countries could enter the United States through the Visa Waiver Program. So it's like, really? And by the way, Obama also added 3 more countries, which constitute the 6 countries that Donald Trump temporarily restricted entry from. And it's a blatant lie. Really, if someone has evidence of this, I will play it on my show. You send it to me, you email it to me at julie@julie-hartman.com. I will play it on my show. Donald Trump no doubt exaggerates. But I do not have an instance, unless you show it to me, of when he blatantly lied about something that Joe Biden or Kamala Harris did that they did not do. Sean? By the way, I didn't introduce you. Hello. Can you think of one?
Sorry,
He's like, come again. Can you think
I was in the middle of eating a dog.
Eat the cats. Eat the cats.
Yeah,
no. Can you think of something that the comparable to this that Joe Biden, or excuse me, that Donald Trump has said that Joe Biden or Kamala Harris did that they did not do? He certainly exaggerates. He goes, they had the worst immigration, the worst inflation, the worst XYZ. But again, we have Charlottesville. Donald Trump did not praise neo-Nazis. He did not say that they were fine people. They have the Muslim ban. He did not ban Muslims writ large from coming into the country. They have the book ban. They have the Trump abortion bans. Can you think of something comparable?
No, little things. Also, I notice now why you put me on the left side of the screen to assert your dominance. They both seem to fudge the COVID numbers to their own advantage, which I've seen Trump do that. He uses that with respect to immigration. He says that he had the lowest people crossing the border in the year of COVID, which obviously immigration would have been low during that point. That's one example I can think of. But no, not to the level that you're talking about. They seem to just spew these repeated lies, almost word for word, from Biden to Harris, and they never get fact-checked. And if any of what the ABC whistleblower said is true, does that fall under the category of equity or equality?
Yeah. No, I mean, well, again, please, I sincerely welcome people cutting in and writing in the chat or emailing me examples, but I can't think of something really that he has said where he is just 100% lying about a policy that they have. Like, literally, it is a 100% lie that Trump banned Muslims from coming into the United States. 100% lie. It is a 100% lie that there are these Trump abortion bans that Donald Trump is responsible for. 100% lie. The Charlottesville thing, 100% lie. I can't think of comparable examples. Again, though, I welcome them. And finally, for our last part of this analysis, I want to talk about not just the fact checking, which really I have focused on primarily because of the affidavit, but the way that the moderators seem to ask the questions in a way that favored Kamala Harris. And again, a part of this affidavit is that this individual alleges that over the time that he/she has been working at the organization, they have, quote, observed a significant transformation in the nature of news reporting at the organization. This person says, quote, I have personally witnessed news stories being cut from programming and not reported at all due to the influence of certain corporations linked to our parent company. This individual also says, quote, it's common knowledge that debate moderators as well as chief executive officers of my employer are well known to not support Donald Trump. This led to several employees speaking up in regard to how fair the debate was going to be. We see the way that they asked questions was very much slanted to make it harder for Donald Trump to answer, make him seem worse. And when you look at the counterpart of the questions that were asked of Kamala Harris, there's not those same mechanisms. Let's compare the questions about Donald Trump's culpability on January 6th with Kamala Harris's culpability with regard to the Afghanistan withdrawal. Let's start with January 6th. Notice when David Muir, and this is video 5, tees up the question. He really paints a picture here. You told your supporters to march. You said you'd be with them. The country saw what happened. Officers were under attack. You were watching it. Notice that. And then right after that, we're going to immediately play the way that David Muir asked the Afghanistan with question of Kamala Harris, who, by the way, said that she was the last person in the room with the withdrawal. So she would be watching this withdrawal in the same way that Donald Trump was watching January 6th. And notice the difference in editorializing between the J6 question and the Afghanistan withdrawal question.
Mr. President, on January 6th, you told your supporters to march to the Capitol. You said you would be right there with them. The country and the world saw what played out at the Capitol that day, the officers coming under attack. Aides in the West Wing say you watched it unfold on television off the Oval Office. You did send out tweets, but it was more than 2 hours before you sent out that video message telling your supporters to go home. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day?
Okay, now let's go to video 5. Or excuse me, video 6.
I want to turn to Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of the debate, and we witnessed a poignant moment today on Capitol Hill, honoring the soldiers who died in the chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan. I do want to ask the Vice President, do you believe you bear any responsibility in the way that withdrawal played out?
Okay, so we're talking about a poignant moment with regard to the Afghanistan withdrawal. That was the one editorial injection of David Muir with the Afghanistan withdrawal. Whereas for January 6th, you told your supporters to march. You said you'd be right there with them. The country and the world saw the officers were under attack. You were watching it in the Oval Office. Do you see any kind of disparity there? And also with the follow-up questions, Trump was pressed with a yes or no question to answer about his responsibility or culpability on January 6th. Kamala Harris was not asked a follow-up yes or no question. Donald Trump was actually asked 4 yes or no questions throughout the debate, whereas Kamala Harris was asked 0. We know yes or no questions make it much harder for you to answer because, in the words of the moderators, it forces you to simplify your answer. If you have an open-ended question, you can take that where you want to go. So again, let's compare. This is the yes or no question David Muir asked Trump about January 6th, video 10.
You were the president. You were watching it unfold on television. It's a very simple question as we move forward toward another election. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day?
And my producer told me, Rick told me before the show, that he had to cut out the yes or no because Trump interjected. That video is supposed to have a yes or no at the end because it did have a yes or no at the end. But then let's compare that to the question that Kamala Harris was asked. Actually, forgive me, I do not have the question that Kamala Harris was asked, though I do have another Trump interjection or David Muir interjection about Trump with regard to January 6th. So he's asked the follow-up yes or no question, and then he's asked a question that brings it back to how David Muir perceived that he was not answering the original question. This is Trump-Harris 31.
The question was about you as president, not about former Speaker Pelosi.
So that's important because, again, he's putting himself in there. It appears to tip the scales. Where Donald Trump is answering about January 6th, he brings up that he offered the National Guard to Speaker Pelosi. David Muir is cutting in and saying the question wasn't about Speaker Pelosi, it was about you. But then if we compare that to the many times that Kamala Harris went off track from the original question, they do not offer a similar interjection. We saw it with immigration. She was asked why the administration waited 6 months to act. She made that answer, and you can look at the transcript. She literally makes the answer about Trump rallies. She just pivots to talking about fictional characters and people leaving Trump rallies. There was no similar interjection, from David Muir. And then when she was asked why her policy positions have changed so much, like fracking and gun buybacks, she began to discuss her middle-class upbringing and how Donald Trump got a loan from his father and had everything handed to him on a silver platter. Don't you think those would have been appropriate moments for David Muir to say, the question was about you, not about Trump rallies. The question was about you, not about Trump's material splendor. But again, as the affidavit confirms, that there was allegedly a lot of internal bias. And the final thing I want to play, just to, again, really illustrate this, because there was the fact-checking against Donald Trump, the lack of fact-checking with all of Kamala Harris's lies, but also on this subject of the way questions are teed up. This one on Ukraine is such a great example. Donald Trump is asked a yes or no question about a war. Let's hear it. This is Trump-Harris 47.
We should just point out here as clarification, and you know this, you and your allies, 60 cases in front of many judges, many of them
no
Republican.
Judge looked at it
and said
they
there was
said
no
we didn't have
widespread fraud.
standing.
That's not the clip. It's Trump-Harris 47.
Just to clarify in the question, do you believe it's in the U.S. best interest for Ukraine to win this war, yes or no?
I think it's the U.S. best interest to get this war finished and just get it done.
All right.
Negotiate a deal.
You know, what does it mean, by the way? Talk about the bias that this whistleblower alleges. What does it mean for Ukraine to win the war? David Muir is smart enough to know that that requires a definition. And Donald Trump should have said, what does that mean? Does it mean that Ukraine cedes the Donbass to Russia? Does it mean that Ukraine keeps the Donbass? Does it mean that Ukraine cedes the Donbass but then regains Crimea, which was lost in the 2014 invasion? I mean, like, what does this mean? But it's forcing Donald Trump to answer. And it's forcing, it's perpetuating this idea where most of the American people don't understand the intricacies of this war. And they think, oh, Donald Trump doesn't want Ukraine to win because he's this horrible guy who isn't rooting for the underdog. It's far more complicated than that. And David Muir knows that. That's why he asked Donald Trump that question. In comparison, his question to Kamala Harris was, as commander-in-chief, if elected, how would you deal with Vladimir Putin? And would it be any different from what we're seeing with President Biden? Far more open-ended. So just to end, we see that this is just another example of institutional capture. We see that this is another example of people greasing the wheels for Kamala Harris and trying to undermine Donald Trump. And this is not so much an affront to Donald Trump as it is an affront to the American people. They deserve objective media outlets which give them truth from falsehood and discern the facts so that they can make an informed decision about who will be leading them. These people, if this is true, totally deserve to be fired. But before we end, should we just do one more gold talk and one more pillow talk? Because right now is a really good time to invest in gold by tying your assets to something physical. Economists are warning us about tax hikes that could hit our IRAs and 401ks hard. With inflation rising and global uncertainty, it's no wonder central banks and many Americans are turning to gold. If you haven't thought about it yet, now is the time, and you should consider trusting Priority Gold to diversify your savings with gold and silver. Text GOLDEN to 1-800-405-GOLD for a free gold information guide. Act now to get your portfolio working for you while, at least for now, the market is golden. Text GOLDEN to 1-800-405-GOLD. That's text GOLDEN to 1-800-405-GOLD. And while you're at it, you might want to consider purchasing some pillows or some bed sheets at a discount. Right now, you can get the MyPillow Premium queen-sized MyPillow for only $19.98. That's made with a patented adjustable fill that adjusts to your exact individual needs regardless of your sleep position. But you can also get, in addition to the pillow, the 6-piece kitchen or bath towel sets for only $25. The brand new mattress topper for as low as $69.98, and their famous MyPillow bed sheets for as low as $25, and so much more. Go to mypillow.com or call 1-800-566-6745 and use the promo code Hartman. Again, you can get that premium queen size MyPillow for only $19.98. Don't delay, order today. Use the promo code Hartman at checkout. I'll see you all tomorrow live at 1 o'clock Pacific, 4 o'clock Eastern. So sorry about the delay earlier today to continue rhyming, but we will be on time tomorrow, and we thank you so much for being here. Take care.
They're eating the dogs. They're eating the cats. Eat the cat. Eat the cat. They're eating the dogs. They're eating the cats. Eat the cat.